All right. So good afternoon, good evening, good night. It might be in some places, not so sure where we have viewers from. So please tell us whether you're on Facebook or in the Zoom room. Tell us where you are viewing us from, and also let us know what level you teach. Okay, so if it's primary, secondary, ECCE, if you're at university level, please let us know where you're viewing us from, and we will be starting now. So we know we still have persons getting in, but we will allow you all to join as we go. But we have so much to discuss because this is a discussion today. And I will love to take the opportunity to say thank you to Nicole Boodhan-Thomas, a well-rounded educator, right? She has taught at many levels, and she really is someone who practices what she preaches. And that's something that I really appreciate about Nicole. And I'm very happy that she agreed to come and share some of her experience with you. But as I said, it really is intended for us to share. So we want to hear from you as we go through today's session. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to the very capable Nicole, who's going to introduce herself a little bit and get started. So welcome everyone, and looking forward to your comments in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or on Zoom. All right, Nicole, I'm handing over.
Thank you, Leanne, for that very warm welcome and introduction. I feel very honored to be here and to be sharing with you guys. As Leanne said, I've been an educator for over 25 years now. I have taught at primary level and secondary level and a little bit at tertiary level. So experiences in various ways. And I'm really happy to share on this topic because I am very passionate about making connections with students, making connections in general, but connecting with our students in order to help them to grow and learn is something that I've always believed in, even as a form teacher, as a dean, as a English language teacher, theater arts teacher. I've seen it in my own career. I've seen it through, mistakes made, let's be real and honest. And so learning from that and growing. So I do hope that what I share with you this evening will sort of fire you up for this new academic year, because I know coming into the new year can be challenging, lots of plans, lots on your mind in terms of what you want for yourself and your students going forward. And there may even be challenges in the back of your mind. So I'm hoping that in some way, through our sharing, that some spark will ignite in you and you will be fired up and want to do wonderful things with your students in the new year. So I'm just going to have a few slides up to guide the discussion. So I'll go ahead and put that up, and we will also be using mentimeter.com, and that's just a platform for me to get some quick feedback from you. So if you want, in one of your browsers, you can open a tab and just go to mentimeter.com, and Leanne, I believe, will also share in the chat the links to the quick questions that I'll ask you to respond to so that we can see those responses in real time. So I'm just going to share my screen. So give me one moment. I hope you're all doing well. And while I'm doing that, I'm just going to ask you to put in the chat for me. How are you doing? I know Leanne asked where you're from and who we have here, and that's important because it's relevant to what we're talking about today, positive classroom culture. And that word connecting. One of the things we will talk about is just that. How do you connect with your students? And sometimes it's just through a quick check-in, and that can happen at the start of a class, at the start of a year. Those quick check-ins to see how you're doing, who are you, where are you from, things like that. So even this evening, even though we're remote and it may be a little difficult to get to know you, it would be wonderful to know a little bit about who we have on and what are your thoughts and feelings right now. So I'm just going to jump right in and ask the first question, and that's going to be on Mentimeter. And I just want you to tell me why you joined this webinar. What made you, see that topic and think, that's something I'm curious about, or I want to hear more about that. So tell us a little bit about why you joined this webinar. And as you get to the link to Mentimeter to start doing that, I'll bring it up so that we can see in real time some of those responses as they come in. All right. So we do want to hear from you. I don't know, Leanne, if anyone has put anything in the chat yet for us to respond to. If anybody has any difficulty getting on, let us know. All right. And I'm just going to share with you. Come on, computer. Let's get to. So, are we getting onto Mentimeter? I'm hoping so. Yes, I am seeing responses, so I'm going to go ahead and share those responses now so you can see what I'm seeing, what's coming in. This is wonderful. Thank you for your insight and for sharing. So, are we seeing this? Yeah. I joined because I want to get ideas and learn more about classroom culture. Great. I really want to start the academic year off right and keep it that way. Beautiful. I love that because I feel lost and on the verge of quitting my job. I thank you for your honesty. I thank you for that because we want to be real in this session. And I like that you're coming in knowing that about yourself already. That is going to be a good start for you. So it may seem like a negative, but I want you to hold on to that. It's going to be better. I think positive classroom culture is important, but often challenging. And so I'm always open to new tips, especially with larger class sizes. Thank you for that. The larger class sizes we know about in this neck of the woods, because the topic caught my attention and I'm very interested in creating a positive environment in my school. Yes, because we can start in our classrooms, but we can influence the wider environment to be equipped to meet the challenges of today's students in the classroom. Yes, because we need to know who's in front of us. I'm interested in using new strategies. I believe that making the connection determines a successful school year. You're absolutely right about that. I want to create deeper connections with my students. Excellent. I joined this webinar to hear from you and others how to promote a positive classroom environment. I'm glad you included the others because I am certainly not the font of all knowledge, and collaboration is key in education, as you would appreciate. I always love learning ideas from other teachers. I want to acquire techniques for developing better teacher-student relationships this year. Excited to learn new strategies. Wonderful. So we want to get new ideas. We want to get new strategies. That's what I'm hearing. I want to know more about the value and importance of positive classroom culture and how it impacts learners. I thank you for your responses. Very, very wonderful. It helps to situate for me what the expectations are, and hopefully helps to guide me to meet those expectations. Yes. I've left that question open. So if there are persons on, for example, on Facebook who would still like to keep adding to that, please do, because at the end, we still use this feedback for our own growth. So please keep sharing, even though you may not be seeing it on the screen, but the question is open and you can keep sharing with us why you wanted to be part of this webinar. very interesting topic. When I phrased it that way, I thought, will that really pique the interest of the people out there? So let's see if we're able to do that. All right. So let me get back to my slide here so that we can make a move on. So what are we talking about today? What does it mean to have a positive classroom culture? What are the benefits of a positive classroom culture, and how do I create a positive classroom culture now? It seems to me that based on your feedback, this is sort of heading down the right road, I would hope, yes? So let's jump right into that. What does this mean when we say a positive classroom culture, or just a classroom culture? What does it mean? So this is just one definition of classroom culture. When you think of culture, you think of norms, practices, beliefs, assumptions that are shared. So for your classroom, it would be those norms, behaviors, beliefs, perceptions, and so that you and your students share. And it shapes your culture, which is a little different to your climate, because, you know, when you walk into a classroom, you can just glance at what's going on and you get a sense of the climate in that room, whether it is upbeat, positive, whether the students are looking and sounding encouraged, whether or not it's, you know, boring and stiff. And so that's your climate in general. But your culture, if you want to get a sense of the culture, you'd have to hang around a little longer. You'd have to visit a few more times to really see what is happening, because this is what is developed over time, that culture. What do we normally do here? Norms, how do we speak? What happens here and how does it happen really speaks to the culture of your classroom. Okay. Now, I know we have persons coming from different levels in education. And so what would happen in a primary school setting would be different from secondary school, because in primary school, you may have a teacher with a class for the entire year, and that's your class, your 30, 40, however many students that you have with you. So that's going to be different in terms of the approaches that you will use to make those connections. And it will be different for a secondary school teacher who will have perhaps a form class in addition to several classes at different levels. So I may have forms 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, depending on my timetable. So it means that whatever we're sharing in terms of tips and, you know, strategies have to be tailored and developed for your particular situation and for your students. So there's not going to be any list. You're not going to see a slide coming up that says, here are the ways to cultivate a classroom culture that is positive. Do this, do this, do this, do this, and boom, it will happen. Because it really builds from your particular situation. And that's why that connectivity is important. Any comments, questions about this definition? Anybody wanting to add to this definition or change or challenge something in it? Don't know if you're seeing anything on the chat yet, Leanne, in terms of that.
Not yet.
Okay.
Hillary says, I like how you said, oh, the comment went away. Hold on. I like how you said it happens over time. That stuck out for me.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Hillary, for that. Yes, it does. The culture builds over time. And we're going to come to talk a little bit about that and how that happens as well in a little while. All right. So that's a general working understanding of culture. What then does it mean to have a positive classroom culture? I want to hear from you. And so we're going to go to Mentimeter again. There's going to be another question that's going to ask you, What do you envision when you hear positive classroom culture? What does that look like in your opinion? So the question on Mentimeter is, what behaviors will you observe in a classroom with a positive culture? So I want to hear from you. Let's get onto Mentimeter and give some of our responses. If you're having a difficulty with Mentimeter, you feel free to put it in the Zoom chat as well. That's fine, because all of that feedback is good for us. So what behaviors will you observe in a classroom with a positive culture? Let's hear from you, and that'll springboard our discussion going forward. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up now what's on Mentimeter.
Jillian is asking if it's the same link. Yes, confirming it's the same link.
It is the same link, yes. So I see we are waiting for some responses. Here we go. Responses are coming in. Exciting. Good. And again, if you're having a little trouble getting onto Mentimeter, you can put your answers in the chat. But it's so much more fun on Mentimeter because we're doing this as a word cloud. So we can see what really stands out in your mind in terms of what you think a positive classroom culture would look like.
Nicole,
right. So are you excited to see? I'm going to share now. Sorry. Yes, Leanne?
Someone was just indicating it was still on the last question, but I think you fixed that.
I did.
Okay.
So hopefully they're getting that now, and I'm going to bring up so you can see what's coming up. So we're seeing at the very middle, kindness, larger than life. So that means quite a few of you indicated that that's what you would see if you were observing a classroom where there was a positive classroom culture. I'm seeing camaraderie, compassion, students on task, open communication, inquisitiveness, collaborative joy. I love that. Helpfulness, greetings. Very good. I like that. Organized, routine. Well, listen, we are on the right track. Open communication, organized. I see kindness is still in the forefront. So that says quite a lot. Empathy, joy, respect, shared vision, movement, even though the word is off to the side a little bit, but I like that. Movement, attentiveness, a safe environment, positive collaboration, integrity, I like that too, participation, cooperation, fun. Let's not forget fun. I love that. A safe space, attentiveness. Greetings. Did I say your greetings? That's important. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Beautiful. So guys, if you want to take a screenshot, you could take a screenshot. I know we'll save this as well and it's being recorded, but this just tells you in a snapshot what you think and feel about this topic. And this is something I'm sharing it as well because it's something that you can use in your own classes. Do that word cloud as a check-in. And it can be based on any kind of question. How are you feeling today? How do you like to learn? There are all kinds of questions that you can ask just to get a sense of who you're dealing with and how then best to meet their needs. And that to me is key when we talk about connection. It's not just about building those relationships, although that's important. It is about understanding how best to serve who you have in front of you. All right, wonderful. So I'm gonna switch back to my presentation But thank you for your responses. And as I said, I leave the questions up. So if you want, you can continue to add to this or put it in the Zoom chat if you like, so that we'll have that feedback as well. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, guys. So what did we think about those words? All very positive and wonderful. Do you think there are any words missing? I'm just giving you a minute in the chat. Yes.
Motivation.
Motivation. Excellent. I'm glad I asked the question now, right? What is missing? Motivation. Yeah. And how do we get there? I know that's the big question on everybody's minds. How do we get there? We're going to get to that. But first, a word from our sponsor. No, I'm just kidding. We have no sponsors. But I saw this picture and I thought, this really resonated with me as I was thinking about this topic. You're seeing cultivated versus wild sunflowers. And one of the things I wanted to share is just this: a positive culture needs to be cultivated. It cannot happen by the way. And you hope that if you just walk in and you be a little positive, that this culture will suddenly blossom and bloom. What are the differences we're seeing in these pictures? On the left, we have those big, bright sunflowers growing up nice and tall. On the right, we are seeing some bright, pretty sunflowers, but it's more sporadic. There's some weeds growing up in between. It's off to the side of a road. Yeah. So I think immediately you're starting to see what I'm getting at here, I hope. Because I just felt, for me, I think in visuals many times. It helps me to think things through. Some of your children might be like that as well. So sometimes throwing some visuals in like this to start and spark a conversation helps. How do I then intentionally go into my classes as I start off next week, intentionally want to cultivate this culture that is positive? First of all, you have to think about that in terms of the context that you're working in. So remember, I was talking before about really understanding those children in front of you, knowing who you have so that you can tailor your classes, lessons, environment to suit. And I thought of it in terms of these flowers, and you think of sunflowers perhaps in their natural environment where they would just haphazardly grow up. That's the kind of environment and soil that they're coming from. But if you want them to bloom much more richly and in that way that you're seeing on the left side there, then what do you need to transplant them? Is that what your classroom is going to be? That place where they're transplanted into more fertile soil? What is that going to be? Yeah. So it's one, understanding the original context, where they're coming from, and then intentionally tailoring and creating opportunities where they can grow and become, to their fullest potential, really. And there are lots of things that we have to think about in that, okay? And I just want to invite you again, if you have comments or questions about anything that I'm saying along the way, please put it in the chat, and I will pause anywhere along the way. That's my culture. I will pause to hear what you have to say. So Leanne, feel free, if you're seeing things coming up in the chat about anything along the way, just, feel free to share that, okay? All right. Even before we get into the how-to, because I know that's what you all said, many of you came for that, right? How-to, what are the strategies? What exactly are we going to do next week when we get into our classes? What are some strategies? But understanding, I think, the benefits, and I think we did have somebody ask about this in the chat when they were sharing earlier. Why even try and put all this energy into cultivating a positive classroom culture? Are there benefits? Are these real benefits? We have evidence, and there's research that shows that there is a correlation between positive teacher-student interactions and academic improvement. Improvement not only in academics, but in their engagement. We see a reduction in disruptive behaviors. even improved attendance and punctuality. Why? Because they want to come to school. You gravitate towards something that is good and positive and a place that wants you. You will want to be there. And we see a reduction in school dropouts. We know that for some areas, that's a big issue. And I'm sure that there are other benefits that you can share and we can think about, so you can put those in the chat as well. But I just pulled some of those key ones because it's important that we understand that we're not doing this in vain, and that these outcomes that we're seeing here, they're very real and very possible, and that they are tried and true as well, that others have seen in tracking and doing the research, that having that positive classroom interaction does have these benefits. When you look at research into social emotional learning, which is something that you're hearing quite a bit about now, they make those correlations in terms of students being able to retain information and make connections with the academic work, that if you make that social emotional connection, you tend to recall that information for a longer period. It goes into your long-term memory. I'm not a neuroscientist by any stretch of the imagination, but a little reading in neuroscience will tell you the science behind that as well. And if you think about it in terms of your own experiences, if you look at experiential evidence, you will know that there are things that you will never forget because you have an emotion that is connected to that event or that memory. And so there is that neurological link that is made between that positivity, those positive emotions or strong emotions, and learning. And
Nicole?
yes.
Just some comments.
Sure.
From Beverly, she says, for the teacher, it makes us also want to go to class. Yeah. And from Jillian, students feel comfortable to share, a safe environment to make errors without persecution.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's so true. And that comment about teachers also wanting to go to class, that's very important, because teachers are to be valued as well. They make the difference in driving these things and making them happen. And so, yes, you would want to go to a class where you're getting that, you're seeing the benefit, you're seeing the improvement. Yes, it gives you the motivation to keep going and work late hours into the night, preparing lessons and doing those things because you found that passion again, because you're seeing the benefit of creating that positive environment. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, guys. I like that. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on the benefits. Again, within the hour, we won't be able to get into all of the research and examples. And I know we do want to get into those strategies and approaches. So I encourage you as always, because as educators, we are lifelong learners. And so, go in and read the articles and see what the research is saying, even about these benefits. If you don't believe me, believe the research, all right? So let's get into it. Creating a positive classroom culture. We're getting into the cultivating of that culture. And I've just sort of put these strategies under some broad areas and umbrella areas, all right? The first is understanding your students and their story. Remember, I talked about those sunflowers and what's the environment that they're coming from, where were they growing up in the first place? Understand your students and their story. Now, I know we have challenges to all of these things I'm saying, and we're going to come to those challenges as well and acknowledge them, but you're going to, find ways to address even those challenges, okay? So I've put here, first of all, listen, and then listen some more. I'm not being a very good example because of the format we have now, but I am talking more than I would love to be talking when I'm in a class with students. We need to do more listening than we are talking. As teachers, especially passionate teachers, tend to want to tell students all the time, how they can be better, what they want for them. And so we do quite a lot of talking, and not necessarily in a bad way, but sometimes that silence and giving them the space to say their piece is very important. And I would encourage you to build that into daily routine. We're going to talk about that. Just those 3 areas I want you to think about, all right? Which would be, as we see in the overview, the relationships, the expectations, and the routines that you build in. Because remember, we said culture is something that is building over time. So if there's not a regular routine, then we're not building that culture. Everything is happening in a haphazard way. So listen and listen some more. How are we going to do this in the classroom setting that we have? Primary school. I taught primary school for a little while, so I know they're there with you from 8:30 to 3 o'clock, lunch, break, everything. In my context, there was no staff room to go back and sit. I was with them right through, right? So there are opportunities there if you're in a primary school setting for listening. You can do it in a more formal way and build that into your lesson plans in little check-ins, even like what we did here. So a check-in through using the technology, or even a check-in through doing a drawing or a poem or a little song, things that help you to check in with them. I was giving this some thought. I was sharing this with Leanne, and I'm going to share it with you. I was thinking back to primary school, what we used to do with the students was head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I don't know if you all still do it. I'm a little old, but head, shoulders, knees, and toes, that little song. And I thought, what a great way to use that to do a check-in with students. So it's physical. It's a little fun if we get this song going, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. But I thought, okay, head, we can use it for a check-in. What am I thinking? Is there anything that I'm puzzling over or anything that is bothering me? Are there things that I'm not understanding? So that's a good way to use that head, shoulders, knees, and toes. So head, what am I puzzling over? What am I not getting? Good. Then shoulders, I thought of burdens on your shoulders. What can you ask your students to share with you that they might be carrying as a burden? Yeah. I mean, we know our children come from all kinds of situations that can be very burdensome. Their children taking care of siblings at home, their children who are having difficulty getting 3 square meals a day. We know the situation. So give them the space to share those burdens and a place to put them down, at least when they get to your space. Knees. When I thought of knees, I thought of prayer, getting down on your knees, yes, or petition. So what do I want to ask for? Okay, in some context, what do I want to pray for? What do I want to ask for? And toes, I thought of stretching up on your tippy toes. So how do I want to grow? What do I want to stretch or reach for? What's a goal or aim that I have that I really want to tippy toe and get to? So I thought just a quick game, head, shoulders, knees, toes, and you can do that check-in with them. And I'm saying primary school, but that's something you can do even with secondary school children. I have seen and done workshops with adults where these icebreakers and games are used, and people think originally, well, that's meant for little children, but no, you'd be surprised how that can get adults engaged as well. So that's just a little thought that I had that I would share. What I want to encourage you to do is something similar for yourself. Think of ways, because the key here is creating the space for listening, observing them, and getting their story. And how do I do that? In innovative ways. So it's not just about sitting and talking with them one-on-one. If you have 30, 40 children in front of you, you're not going to have the time, given everything that you have to do, to talk to every single child. But over the course of time, you will get every child's story if you create the opportunities and the spaces for them to give you that feedback, and you really listen. Not listening to respond, but listening to learn and hear their story. Okay, questions, comments, feel free.
Just sharing from Cindy from Facebook. She said, in reference to the head, shoulders, knees, and toes, wonderful to learn about them and find out how to help them.
Good. I'm glad. Great. You may think of other little games that you can play like that as well. these are tools. Tools are there. They're meant to help you in whatever intention that you have. So don't think that, okay, oh, good. So I grab onto this app or this online something, and I'm going to use that everywhere. It doesn't quite work like that, because as you know, if you have a very old cell phone like me, you can't add every app onto it because it'll slow it down. I just got a message today, low on memory. So it's not every tool and trick that will work for your context, which is why I'm saying start with understanding your students and their story. Know who you have in front of you, and then you will know which tools can work with that group. Don't try to do everything. Don't try to, get every single story. You may not, but start with the key ones. You may already know that, okay, this is a child that is acting up in class, instead of the response of, well, I had that child last year and they were real trouble and I don't know what you're going to do with them this year. Then we can make the intentional decision to get that child's story. So you may not get all 40 stories right away in one term, but there's some key students that you want to make sure and get their story, and eventually build and get everybody's story. So you know who you have in front of you, and you're tailoring not just your lessons and your academics, but you're tailoring your environment so that they can be nurtured and grow. So you're fixing the soil now. You see, I am not into agriculture and plants and so on, and that's my disclaimer up front. But somehow that is the analogy that came up for me to use with you tonight. All right. So you're putting whatever nutrients you need for your particular, flowers in front of you to make them grow. Okay.
So just sharing, Nicole.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Bishma on Facebook said, through nursery rhymes and songs, we can reach more children. Mm-hmm. Lisa says, Deep will give the child a sense of real connectedness with the teacher. And Chanel, I love the head, shoulders, knees, and toes idea. Even with teachers at the beginning of the year, it could be a great addition to the first staff meeting.
Great. Thanks for the feedback, guys. I love it. I love it. I'm glad that, you're connecting with that. And I know that you all are beautiful and creative people, and you can come up with things that you can do. But again, I want to go back to what is the intention behind it. If we keep the intention to get their story, understand them, then we can shape those tools very easily and find what works for us. It might be they do a drawing, they do a painting, finger painting, things that, and you can get into a question. You look at a child finger painting, a young child, and you simply ask the question, why did you use that color? You find that child using a lot of red. Now, we're not trying to be, psychologists that get into the psychology of color, but just initiating that conversation. Well, why did you use so much red? And they might just say, well, I like red. Okay. And if you come back again at that conversation and ask another question another time, probing questions that don't put them on the defense, you will get that story coming out. Yeah. All right. So we have understanding your students, knowing who they are. Now you've got to know yourself, your beliefs and attitude. Because you can't say, I want a positive classroom, a positive classroom culture, and you are not positive. Now, does that mean you have to be a ray of sunshine every minute of every day? That is unrealistic, because we are real people with real burdens that we are carrying ourselves, real challenges that we have in front of us. But how then do we forge ahead to create that positive classroom culture, even with, some of the things that we are carrying? But I think that starts with your own beliefs about education, about children and how they learn and if they can learn. I did a session about vocation, teaching as a vocation, and that's something that introspection as a teacher is very important. Is this for me? And I'm telling you, 20-something years into my career, I ask that question of myself every single day when I come to work. Is this for me? Am I giving it my all? And I'm going to continue to ask that question and challenge myself and fix what I need to fix in order to give my best. Because this is your if this is your vocation, then the positive attitude will come because the drive is there, because you want what is best for your children. So beliefs like everyone can excel. Do I really believe that? Each child is unique. Each child has a gift. Mistakes are okay. They help us to grow. I mean, be real with yourself. Do you really believe these things, or what are your core beliefs? Do you come from that old school where children should be seen and not heard, and you just sit down and be quiet and do your work, and that's good behavior? Good child. What do I really believe about, about teaching, about children, about this classroom? Okay, about trust, those kinds of things. I encourage you to write it down and journal it as one technique as a teacher before you step into your classrooms next week, to understand what are some core beliefs, and be real with the negatives if there are negatives. But I want you to pick out at least 3 beliefs, positive beliefs that you want to build and cultivate in yourself and then in your students. So it might be that you are cultivating a culture of compassion, or you want to cultivate a culture of excellence. Yeah? Think about it that way, rather than trying to do everything, but give yourself a guiding theme, if you like, for that culture that you want in your classes, because it will ultimately come from you and your core beliefs as well. Okay? And I will throw in here as well that you have to think of those beliefs also in the context of where you're working, the wider school context, and what the wider school is trying to achieve, their vision for the school and for the children. So how does it fit into that? Questions and comments as we go along, because time is galloping along quick.
Yeah, I realize that I'm going to read real quick. Kizzy on Facebook, I believe that teaching requires a bit of acting. I try to begin class with a smile and greeting and end every class with an affirmation. Jillian says mistakes are okay. I always tell my children that is why pencils have erasers, so we can fix them. And Shada says, yes, I truly believe that it's essential for the atmosphere and the growth of the students. There are other comments, but what I think we're going to do, we're going to compile all these wonderful things and we're going to send them out via email. Please. And post them on Facebook.
Yes, because you see, this is a community and we are a learning community together. So that sharing is going to help all of us. So fantastic. Thanks, guys. Okay, I'm going to move along quickly. Expectations and goals are also important for creating that positive classroom culture. And it links to the last point as well. But it is important, if you want to create a positive classroom culture, that you have high expectations for your students. And I don't care, I'm sorry. It's not about where they're from and what they're capable of. I don't care if they came into the school with 30% or 90%, but you have to start with high expectations, because if you don't, you're not going to push. You're not going to try to get them to go beyond what you envision they are capable of. Yeah. So have high expectations for your students. That belief that each child can improve and succeed, and students can regulate their own behavior, things like that. But here's the thing, we talked about journeying. So it's not about being unrealistic. So it's not like, okay, I have a child who's performing at 30%, and by the end of the term, I'm going to get her to 100%. No, it's a journey. I have to walk. And therefore, if I understand my child's story, my children's story, what is that journey going to look like for my kids? Because I do have an expectation that they will succeed and they will do well. But what is that journey going to be for each child? So it's to think about that and then think about the techniques that you're going to put in place. See, because this is not a webinar about the differentiation and the scaffolding and all of that, but you all know those terms, I'm sure. And that is where now the tools come in that is driven by the approach, by the pedagogical belief and the approach that you're taking to your class and to your teaching. So that culture of high expectation, yes, and speak it. The culture comes in the practices and norms. It comes in the language that you're using. This is what we believe here. This is what we do here, right? So nobody is going to call my children dunce or say that is the slow class. We're not going to stand for that. And so we're going to start putting things up around our classrooms, language that speaks into those high expectations, things like that. Posters, have them do vision boards for themselves. Those are, texts. I think somebody spoke something similar to that. A vision board for the class and what we want for every child in this class. Yeah. And just creating again that full atmosphere that cultivates that idea that, we can reach beyond what we can see. I'll give you that quick little story about a child who had never seen the ocean. And again, knowing her story and just stretching her to see that you can go beyond these shores. There's a life beyond Trinidad. Yes, I can travel the world. There's some children who come from a background where that didn't even enter their mind as a possibility. But if we have high expectations, then we can dream even bigger. As I go to the next slide, Leanne, you can just give me any comments or questions that come. Yeah.
Sure. Liz from Facebook says, when children know you see their real potential and that you have high expectations for them, they respond well because they begin to see what they are truly capable of. Shada says, yes, I truly believe that it's essential for the atmosphere and the growth of the students. And Jillian says, and you must tell them the expectations. Start small, a little at a time, books.
Yes, absolutely. I'll tell you this as well. I used to have a Form 1 form class some years ago. One of my past students came back to do a talk at school. And she mentioned the fact that I had said to them in Form 1 that they are going to be the future managers, CEOs, because we had done a vision of what they wanted for themselves. And who was talking at the time, they want a big house and they want a fancy car and all of that. And I said to them, there's a lifestyle that goes with all of that. Yes. I said, do you want to be, if you're going to be in a cocktail party and you're talking to this person, that minister, who knows, the leader of a country, and that's the life. And they looked at me like I was absolutely crazy because that was not their reality at the time. But you build that expectation in. Years later, that resonated with her. She is the CEO of her own business. And she remembered that, I spoke to them about that, having that vision of themselves as something bigger. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Those things do have an impact on your students. Building positive relationships, this webinar, we talked about, connecting rather than correcting. And it is about, if we make those connections, we will find that less and less we will have to correct behaviors because we've built these relationships where eventually students will regulate each other and their own behaviors. So build positive relationships, ensure that your lessons have opportunities for students to connect with each other and with you. Okay, so it's not I breeze into the class, I give you 100 sums to do and I breeze out of the class and here's your homework, make sure you have it on my table. There's no opportunity to connect. Good. I want to put a plug in here very quickly about COVID. You see this thing about relationship, we cannot assume that children know how to do certain things that we take for granted, know how to ask a question, that they know how to refuse somebody, that they know how to disagree. We can't assume. Those are all things that we're building into them when we build this positive classroom culture, okay? So remember that as well. Like this, it sounds like a big job, but it doesn't have to be if we build it into the culture of what we're doing every day, okay? So opportunities to connect can happen within your lesson, but it can happen outside. You're walking on the corridor on the way to class, you're having a conversation. A child has come up and says, Miss, can I help you with your books? That's your culture extending beyond your classroom walls, okay? So things like that, opportunities to connect. And while you're walking to class, you're having a quick conversation, positive conversation. Positive relationships with parents as well, because it takes a village, okay? I've heard people lament, you're trying to do this in school, but then it's undone when they go home. We see coming out of COVID, some of the impact of that as well. So the connection with home is important, and having the same expectations for parents and their families is important. It's an extension of the positive hopes and dreams that you have for your own students. You want it to extend to their family as well. Okay, so there are all kinds of ways you could do that. An outing, a class outing. I had a dean take almost her entire year group out to down to Nelson Island, and it was a beautiful opportunity. And again, there might be students who never would have that opportunity otherwise. So there are opportunities for them to see you interact outside of the classroom and understand you outside of the classroom, which breaks down barriers and helps them to open up to you a little better. Good. I know I'm going at a gallop, so interject at any point with any comments or questions, all right? Collaborate to establish routines. Again, it's not about being the sage on the stage. I come in and I tell you, these are my rules, follow them, okay? Collaborate with your students. A student doesn't come to school, I don't think, thinking, you know what, I want to be miserable here every day and I want children to be talking over me and harassing me and I can't learn my work. No, I think they want the same things we want, yes? But we have to listen to them and collaborate with them on the routines that will put them in a place where they are ready to learn and open to learning. And yes, we have challenges to that. And I want to encourage you to bring them in on the conversations where the challenges are concerned, which we'll touch in the next slide or a couple of slides down. So little routines like, how do we start and end class? How do we ask questions? How do we share information? We can't make assumptions because, you know, these are routines that were not built into them, and especially coming out of COVID, different routines were established at home and even in the online environment. And so if we want to create a positive culture where we are asking questions, we know how to get what we want and ask for what we need without demanding or shouting or screaming. And so we have to show them how. We have to give them the language, give them the behavior, give them the tools to be able to do those things. So as somebody was talking about, you know, you start your class with an affirmation and you end with an affirmation. That's a simple thing that you can introduce that could make a big difference. So again, it doesn't have to be about 100 things that you're trying to do, but change one thing. Okay, change one thing and start with that as a positive. All right, so I like the positive affirmations to start class. Greetings. Somebody talked, that was in our word cloud. Greetings are important. I will share with you very quickly. I was at a workshop some years ago and the facilitator shared that what she hadn't thought of in her own career was that she had children coming to school who all they ever heard at home was negative talk. Like in other words, in our parlance, they're getting buff all the time. And then you come to school, which is supposed to be a fun, positive, wonderful place. And the first thing you hear is, why are you late to school? What's wrong with your uniform? Why are you not in class? And all our language, all our interactions are negative interactions where we're buffing and correcting. Now, our intention might eventually be one where we're trying to get them to do well, but the interaction is not a positive one. And we're not going to get them to buy into that if the interaction is not a positive one. And that's something I did a self-check on as well. As a dean, I remember meeting a parent in the grocery and she laughing because she was trying to, you know, put her daughter on the spot and said, oh, this is the dean who don't smile. I thought, what? That was a real wake-up call for me because I did not see myself like that at all. I always thought of myself as a bubbly person, but I didn't realize that my interactions with students were becoming just that. This serious kind of, why are you not in class? Where are you supposed to be now? Da, da, da. So I had to be more mindful. And if I catch myself slipping back into that, I pull back right away. And what I do is for, you know, litmus test for every negative interaction, try to build at least 5 more positive interactions for students. So what they remember is the positive. Okay. Oh, I feel like I'm talking a lot. Do we have anybody that's sharing anything there that I need to hear?
Yes, so Shada says we convey to them that they are part of this incredible intelligent nature which keeps growing and creatively adapting to circumstances. So they have so much potential. Nature nurtures human beings to take care of each other.
Yes. Thank you for that. And again, all of this sounds really beautiful, I know. And some of us may have some doubts. How do I do that? Because, sometimes, I would walk into a class with all my bubbly, wonderful self, and all the children look at me like, what are you coming in here? I remember teaching poetry and went into a class. I love poetry so much. And they looked at me like I was crazy. But eventually I wore them down. That's a whole other story that I can't get to at 5 to 7. But it turned out in the end that every student in that class, including the students who said they didn't like poetry, each child wrote me a poem and put it together in a book for me when I was ready to leave that school. And that was one of the best gifts I ever got. So persistence, guys, it works. Not beating them over the head with it, but living your truth. Yeah, they saw that I really did love poetry and I wasn't just saying it to try to get them to do work or anything like that. Yeah, and it resonated. Right, so as I said, all of that is good and well, but Nicole, my reality is, and therefore, how do I maintain that positivity? How do I get up and come to work next week and face all of this? You know, I want it for my children. Understand that I don't have time, right? I only have so many periods with the children. Good, I have other classes, I have other responsibilities. The time goes very quickly. The school wants me to finish the curriculum, the exams. Parents want to make sure that their children pass the exam. Those are some pushbacks that we're getting, right? Class size, somebody talked about that. I have 30-something, 40 children in front of me. How do I connect with all of them? I may have limited resources, okay? I don't have all the fancy apps and computer and all of that to work with, but you gotta work with what you have and be creative with what you have. And I want to say as well, bring the children in to face the challenges. Somebody was asking a question about, as Leanne shared with me before, about the heat that we're dealing with these very hot days, and that in many of our schools, those classrooms are blazing hot. And how do we motivate and keep a positive classroom culture when we are sweltering and when it is difficult to focus? And again, bring them in on that challenge. Okay, we all sweltering here. What can we do? What can we do about it? Because we can't change the walls and but what can we do about it together? All right. Is it that we're going to take breaks, water breaks, make a fun game out of it? All right, water break time, everybody, water break, 3 minutes, and we go, yeah, and turn it into a positive response rather than we all fall into the doldrums together and say, well, let's give up on this. There's nothing we can do. All these constraints exist and forget about it. That is not to dismiss that the challenges aren't real, teachers, and that you do have a lot on your plate to deal with. But I think if we're really talking positive classroom culture, the challenge is really to find the positive. And as Leanne said, I like to be real about myself. And it's a challenge even for me. And coming into this new school year, that's something I reflected on as well. How am I coming into the new year, bringing that positivity with me, given that there are real challenges that we're dealing with, but I have to keep trying. I cannot give up, okay? Because it does make a difference. We saw that. We know it instinctively as human beings, we know it, yeah? And so when it comes to these challenges, as I was sharing before, in terms of time, doesn't mean that you have to sit for a whole class and put aside one whole period and say, okay, this is time to sit and talk and me to get your story. That may not, be the reality because you do have other demands. Okay, I may not have all of the resources of computers and apps and things that they could go on, but what do I have at my disposal? What can they write in their notebooks right now? What can they do? Make them fold up little fans and fan and make a game out of it and teach them some physics and thing along the way. Let's find creative ways to face the challenges that we have. In the 1 minute that I have left, I just want to hear what you have to say about challenges, because I think that's important, if you'll indulge me the time.
Yes. So, Nicole, you can get an extra 5 minutes. It's okay.
Thank you.
um, so, Jillian says planning, planning, planning. Collaborate with your colleagues as well. Share resources to make everybody's job easier. That's a staff culture to foster. Shada shared that they sometimes turn it into the SPA or into a project for those of you who are not from
Right.
the Caribbean. Um, I think the occasional check-ins are a huge part. It's surprising how many teachers don't do it. I had a class tell me once that nobody asked them about their day, and it
Mhm.
was as simple as a 5-minute chat about what's going on. Some will say, some will not, but they know you care.
Yes. Absolutely. I love that sharing. I like that you said some will say and some will not, but that doesn't mean you're not reaching them. Because remember, they're all different and they share in different ways as well. But there's some that quietly are taking it all in and it is resonating with them, and others that will be more outgoing and that will share with you what they're thinking and what they're feeling. Those check-ins, I can't emphasize enough how important that is. And if you make that part of your routine in helping to build that classroom culture, I think that will go a long way to make the children feel valued, which will go a long way to motivate them to do better. I mean, I know we're facing half of the challenges I haven't put up here. I mean, we're dealing with very serious things as well, like, school violence and other things like that. But we can make a start, some inroads to connect with students so that we will not have to be spending so much time on discipline. But guys, I do want to share that that is a road to travel. And it's not going to be a switch and all of a sudden you're going to see a difference, but you will see that difference. So the three things I want you to keep in mind for that positive classroom culture is keep in mind routines. Okay, that's important because as we establish a culture is something that grows over time, and it is cultivated and intentional. You don't want to leave it up to whatever other influences around and however it goes, okay? So routines, your expectations are important, and the activities that you pair with that will go a long way to help build that positive classroom culture, okay? Ooh, 7:02 already. Where did the time go? I was having so much fun. I hope this was helpful. It's not a workshop that we can drill down into all of the details that we would like to, but I really want to encourage you to spend the next few days doing some journaling and introspection for yourself as a teacher, so and you reposition yourself in terms of what you want your positive classroom culture to be. Okay, what culture do I want to cultivate in my classes? So spend some time doing that along with your planning of the nitty-gritty things. I encourage you to think of at least just three tools for checking in with your students. Even if you just start with that, 3 tools for checking in with your students. If it's the head, shoulders, knees, and toes, or something similar to that, or if you have the technology at your disposal and you can do Mentimeter with them, or a similar app like that you can do a quick check-in. They are all about emojis, I think, still, because technology in this generation is going by so quickly. You can have emojis and just, how you're feeling right now, and have them put that emoji up and say, if you have them up on a chart somewhere and they can just point and say, that's how I'm feeling today, acknowledge it. Okay, how are we going to get from, I'm feeling frumpy to this is going to be a better situation? And if our lessons are engaging, then they kind of forget, you transport them and you take them out of the mire of what they're dealing with and all of the challenges. And you take yourself out of that as well, I want to say, teachers, because I know sometimes you could be kind of dragging to class, and you get there and you infuse that positivity, you come back out more energized. So do not despair. The challenges are real. We don't want to dismiss them, but do not despair. So I just wanted to leave you with that in terms of going forward into the new week and into the new year. Remember, guys, one small action can be the start to changing the whole wide world. So that plant, I saw a video with a guy who planted one tree at a time and changed the whole landscape of what was once a desert. I don't have the exact link, but go look for that because that was very powerful for me. the place is now a forest and animals have come back and that kind of thing. And it's one guy planting one tree at a time. So one action can be the start to changing things. Thank you so much for spending this time. If you go to Mentimeter very quickly, I will pull up the last share just to share your takeaway. Okay, so I'm going to pull that up in a minute for you to do that. So we get some feedback, and just to say, have a wonderful school year. I hope it's great. And thank you so much for spending this time with me, guys. So I'm just going to pull up that Mentimeter for you now. And we can, yeah. 1 second, let me get that slide going. And just to get your feedback, if you have any takeaway at all from this. Leanne, that would be the second link, yes?
Yes, I posted it.
Great.
And Nicole, just while people are posting, you know, I cannot begin to share, you know, but the general feel is thank you very much, Nicole, for what you have done. You know, people are talking about feeling really enthused and excited and inspired as well to go back to their classrooms. And, you know, somebody commented on your, what I always tell you about, your charm. So, you know, I can safely say that people have taken away something from your presentation, and certainly that is what we are here about. But there was so much great sharing, so I just want to say to everyone that we will collate all of the sharings along with what Nicole said, and we're going to send out a summary via email as well as on Facebook, so you can look out for that by the end of this week. All the various, because persons did share quite a lot of great ideas, as well as please continue checking in on our Facebook page, because we're actually sharing tips for getting back to school at this time. 2 weeks ago, we shared tips on form teachers. So do check out our Facebook page as well for more tips and more ideas as to how you can create that positive environment. And well, Nicole, I will leave you to say your final words as you close off.
Thank you, Leanne. Thanks, guys, so much. I really enjoyed this. At first, I thought an hour was going to be long, but actually, no, that's a lie. I didn't think an hour. Somebody told me an hour was ambitious. And I thought, no, an hour kind of goes by quickly, but it went by faster than I thought. You know why? Because I was enjoying myself. And that's my takeaway, guys. If you're enjoying yourself, all of the other challenges kind of go away, right? All the heat and the whatever, the imperfection of life, it goes away because in the moment, you're having a good time and life is meaningful. What you're doing is meaningful. I just wish that for all of you out there as teachers, you know, that you continue to press on in positivity, that you continue to collaborate with one another, value one another, and value our kids, and have a wonderful new school year, everybody. Thanks so much.
Right, and thank you once again. Please look out for our upcoming sessions. We have quite a lot planned for the rest of this year, so do look out for that, as well as feel free to tell us about sessions that you would really like us to have. We will send out this information to you very soon. Look out for it by Friday, either via email or on Facebook. All right. So do tell us if you have any other sessions that you'd like us to have as well. And we would like to just mention, Nicole, we had people from all over. I mean, I was just seeing so many different countries. Of course, Trinidad and Tobago, from Belize. I saw Grenada. I saw Jamaica. I saw you know, I can't even remember right now, but there were quite a number of places represented. So thank you very much to our global audience. And please do let us know what you would like us to talk about next. From Barbados, yes, Trisha, from Barbados.
Nice. Welcome, welcome.
Yes, so we had quite a lot of people from, you know, representing the different parts of the globe. And so we are very happy to please share, continue to share your ideas. From Dominica. You know, please continue to share your ideas, because one of the things that Nicole and I discussed is that education issues are basically the same all around the world. And so when we share with each other, that's how we build our own positive community. So, guys, have a wonderful Onandan, you did not miss it. It's going to be repeated. You can see it after. He's saying he missed it, but
Oh,
it
okay.
is going to be on Facebook, as well as we're going to send out the recording via email, which you can feel free to share with your colleagues as well. All right, so you didn't miss it. All right, so we'll see you all soon.
Bye,
As
guys.
I close off.
Mm.